Okay, so I will be continuing my comments from where I left off. So Daryl Doan, our Economic Development Director, says that a biodistrict is, quote, something I hope becomes part of West Elk Grove's future one day. Mr. Jones certainly doesn't want to hear from residents about how they feel about living next to Big Pharma. A residential community next to a national wildlife refuge is not an appropriate location for big drug manufacturing plants producing pharmaceutical toxic waste. The West Elk Grove community is more concerned than ever about backdoor dealings regarding the CNU hospital project. Therefore, it's hard to believe that the listed general plan policy descriptions in the capital improvement program regarding 2 projects are the true motivators. Those projects are the park and ride lot on I-5, close to I-5 and Elk Grove Boulevard, as well as the change to the Elk Grove Boulevard exit on I-5 South. Those numbers are WFC 016 and WTR 031.
Could you repeat that again,
Sure.
please?
It's WFC 016 and WTR 031. Traffic and ambulance access is going to be a huge consideration in the determination as to whether or not the CNU hospital project is approved. So the modifications through the capital improvement program at this time are suspect, as they could materially impact the CNU hospital project. And as I explained earlier, on February 27th, the City Council made the decision that the general plan would not have anything in there that would materially impact the CNU hospital in light of the community's concerns. And so therefore, to make these 2 changes that would immaterially impact the CNU hospital project, it's not consistent with the general plan, because the general plan specifically is not supposed to have those items in there. So I would say that the commission could not make the changes for the, again, I-5 southbound off-ramp on Elk Grove Boulevard and the park and ride lot. The city needs to, in closing, this is my last remark, the city needs to stop paving the way for the CNU hospital. It's really up to CNU to be a true community partner and do what's necessary to serve the community. I think that in one of the policy descriptions in the general plan, it's something to the effect of employers should incentivize not using, just the traditional way of commuting through cars, and have incentives to not be on the freeways, to not causing traffic, to using other means. So maybe this could be discussed through the appropriate procedures through CNU's hospital project being considered. And there's a lot of different opportunities that could happen there. Maybe CNU could be offering some things to better serve the community, possibly coming up with some funds to improve traffic, to come up with these creative solutions. At this time, again, it's not for the city to be paving their way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, I have a couple things also. Same thing with as far as things that look like they might be, and so for if I'm off on something, but I did see something about on WAM 008. It's really tiny. Something about an east-west route maybe along Elk Grove Boulevard, which is the bus rapid transit. So I don't know if that's something that had always been in the works, or if that is something that could possibly be something that was happening because of that little project. The other thing, I know we've talked a lot about the floodplain, and we've talked about projects, but in this particular, in WDR 045, it says that the problem identification report currently being prepared, and I have that report, and it was done in January of 18. So either this is old information, but that's already available. And so I kind of am uncomfortable when we get these things that say locations to be determined once additional analysis is performed, because that analysis, I think, is already available. And of course, the park and ride. While I am in favor of Park and Ride. The city spending the money to make this happen, just to benefit one particular project, I think is not in the spirit of the IFP 1.8 that says infrastructure improvements must be financed and/or constructed concurrent with or prior to completion of new development. So it was our understanding, we actually asked that at the information meeting, and we're told by the city that if there were infrastructure changes that had to be made, that they would have to pay those. But now it looks like they're being done in advance. And then, of course, that southbound off-ramp, which, and what's that? That's the WTR 031. I live there. I travel all times of the day, and I have never seen that backed up there, ever. So I don't know that that is something that the city would need to be in a hurry to get. I would think on-ramps. I mean, I could totally understand if they were changing something with an on-ramp because of morning traffic, but I just don't see the need for that. So are any of these rolled into some other plan, or are these all new things that were put on here?
Okay. So WFC 16 is a parking rod lot. Essentially, that project, as well as the WTR 031, which is the I-5 Elk Grove Boulevard South off-ramp project, those projects were identified in the Lakeside CFD as projects that were needed when that came in from the county, I don't even know how long ago. I mean, that was may have been over 20 years ago. So we've had these in the CIP for a couple of years. I know it sounds funny, right? So we've had these in the CIP for a couple of years. We've been investigating a location for the park and ride lot for a couple of years. One of the challenges we have is all the vacant locations currently are identified as affordable housing. So that project's on hold currently. We do a CIP quarterly report that goes to council, and it shows that project's been on hold for quite a bit of time, just trying to find a place we could put it. I'm trying to tie it in with transit.
Kevin, is that a placeholder then? Is that what this is?
No, we've actually been working on it. We just can't find a place to put it. It's just too dense. There's just too much development in that area to even find a vacant lot that we could even use for it. So we have the money from Lakeside CFD to do the work, but we just have to determine whether or not we can move forward with it. And we just haven't. Right now, it's pretty much on hold, and we're going to try to revisit it again, just from a site selection standpoint.
And just to be clear, it's a CFD, so it has to be spent in the local community.
Oh yeah, it has to be spent in the Lakeside CFD,
Yeah. And
or it has to benefit that Lakeside CFD. So that's what it is. Yeah.
And you indicate this is probably inherited when we incorporated?
Oh yeah, it's from a county CFD that they still manage. That's where the funding's from. Similar issue on the Elk Grove Boulevard off-ramp. We've had that project for a couple of years. We essentially did an analysis. We looked at it, and we just don't see a need for the project right now. So we basically had it on hold for a little bit, and we're going to revisit it. Essentially, we could give the money back to Lakeside, to the CFD itself, possibly, if the project isn't needed. But right now, we're holding it, and we're going to reevaluate an approach.
Is there a capacity issue or a safety issue related to this?
Well, my understanding
proposed
is
improvement.
yeah.
I have to admit, it's sounding as if there's a certain amount of funds that have been both contributed, taxed, and they're stacked there, and without necessarily a need defined. Is that
no?
okay,
No,
dissuade me.
There's a certain amount of funding, and it can only be used for certain things, and these are the two things they can be used on. So we can only use that money on these things. We either use it or don't use it.
Right.
So
I guess that's you're codifying my point, I believe. And those purposes were defined as these particular projects.
Yes.
So they were collected for this specific project. These projects had been identified
Yes.
in the CFD
Correct.
funding mechanism.
Yes.
Okay.
The county
Yeah.
developed a long time ago.
Thanks, I appreciate the clarification.
Can
Yeah.
you clarify for me if we don't discover a need for them, what happens? Because like these community members, I use that off-ramp every single day. I don't know that we're going to run
So-
into a point of where we need to do that.
Right. So
project.
we'll essentially, if we don't use the money, we'd have to return the money. I don't believe that there's any other needs for that money, so I'm not sure how the county would handle the return of those funds. So, again,
Do they administer the funds as well?
what's that?
Do they administer
Yeah,
the funds?
they administer. We have to apply, and then they provide those funds to us.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's one of the more interesting CFPs.
How many other circumstances in CFDs do we have that are controlled by another body?
I think it's one of the last ones that is controlled by the county. There's a CFD to the north of that, which is I'm trying to think what it's called. Not Lakeside,
But maybe another.
yeah, there was when those came in under the county, they were created there. Yeah, but I think that's the only one that Lakeside CFD is the only one that has any funding. And
If they were to identify a different purpose, or how would that happen? Would that be through the county then?
yeah, it would have to be through the county. I mean, we would identify. It'd have to be an identified project in there. CFD for it to be able to
Right.
be used. I don't know if there is. I don't think there is another one. This is the last. We use this money also, I believe, for improvements on Harbor Point Drive. There was some landscaping work that was maybe 10 years ago, I think, that we did in the median. And then WDR 45, that essentially identifies annual storm drain projects. In years 2 and 5, there's no actual project associated with that. It's just identifying that in years 2 through 5, there will be projects that we will do related to either storm drain master plan or may relate to the some of the floodplain issues we're having with Senate Bill 5, which doesn't allow development in urban and urbanizing areas within 200 floodplain. So there's no specific project. Really, it's just more of a document that there are needs that extend beyond this first year and then into years 2, 3, 4, and 5 of the capital improvement program.
I would just mention, of course, we appreciate the commentary. We appreciate hearing from you, but do know that many of these projects have been ongoing for many years, and they are not some slip in that I think everybody would sit here and say that we really are trying to do the best we possibly can with what we have to build a great, strong city, and we're definitely here to listen to your comments, so keep them coming, but know that we're not trying to slide anything under the rug here.
Anybody that knows of anything untoward related to any project that comes up that requires investigation or whatever, you have an obligation to bring that evidence forward. That would be my comment related to that. I've mentioned this 2 or 3 times in the past, that where I think we have to be careful about assumptions of people's motives, whether it's yours or someone else's. And but at the same time, if there's evidence of anything untoward, it's an obligation as a citizen to bring forward. And I would encourage people to do that if they do indeed have that.
Madam Chair, I move that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution. Adopting, finding the 2019 to 2024 capital improvement program not to be a project under the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Section 15378B of Title 14 of the California Code of Regulations, and finding the 2019-2024 capital improvement program consistent with the City of Elk Grove's general plan.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.